Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the fifth episode of KPoppin Your Cherry. Today is a very special episode. I don't really know how sad this is gonna be, spoiler alert, but yeah, I am your host, Really Bad Venge. Care to introduce yourselves, guys, in case nobody knows who we are?
Hello, I'm Captain Janana.
Hi,
I'm
I'm
Queen
Tata
Bon.
Meg.
Oh yeah, and I'm Queen Bonisa.
I was about to say I'm not Meg, and then I realized
Not-
no, that's not the name I use here. That's for Carousel.
I mean, that's technically K-pop related, right? I'm assuming you buy stuff from Carousel.
Let's not talk about that.
I mean, show of
You made a
hands.
difficult decision last night.
I know.
Show
I'm
of
very
hands, who's
proud.
on a buying ban right now?
I am.
Bahala kayo sa buhay
I
nyo.
don't
Di joke
need
lang.
Kailangan.
I don't need.
the buying
You know,
bar.
I heard that in the SpongeBob voice that I don't need it. I don't need it. I need it.
I
Oh my gosh.
I don't.
It's good we brought it up in the episode for accountability. So 30
I
days. 30 days,
I
guys.
did not subscribe to
30
that
days.
because I still need to collect a bunch of RV stuff before I never see them again. But I support you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I shall watch over you guys to make sure.
Watch over.
Thank you.
I mean,
Layover
I just-
po tayo.
I just have like.
Yes, I'm gonna
you know.
be Big Brother, gonna watch
Yeah.
over you.
All right, so that's a pretty good introduction to this week's, pretty heavy topic. We just needed to start with something light because we need to talk about the elephant in the room. So what month is it this month, guys? If anybody can, educate me.
October.
Over.
Like,
What's with October though?
No, it's
Smooth.
Depression and Mental Health Month, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, mental
Right?
health month. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, World Mental Health Day is October 10, but it's also Depression and Mental Health Awareness Month.
Month.
So it's a whole thing.
So today is our mental health week episode. Let's talk elephant, or we're gonna address the elephant in the room. And as fun of a hobby as this is, not just to like the people like us who are fans of it, but we're pretty sure it should be fun to the people involved in the industry, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't have become idols. But I think it's time to address that there is actually a very systemic, very difficult situation that we have seen in the course of the years where we've become fans, or in the months that we've seen, because things like this have been happening as recently as last month, if I'm not mistaken. But this is basically just not an admission per se, but it's an acknowledgement that even the industries we love can affect us in ways that we don't necessarily see as harmful in the moment, but can be if left unchecked. And there have been a lot of examples so far. So before we begin on that, we've actually curated some special playlists for the occasion. But before we go there, we're going to discuss one new release of the week, just to, ease things up and set the mood. So take it away, Bon. I know that you're excited about this, and it's not like I have anything to say about the newest release of the week.
Okay, so for this week, we're gonna be talking about "Waiting" by Woods. So, if you watch the MV, it's kind of relevant to this month, like Mental Health Month, because the way I saw it was he was like a patient who was undergoing this delusion or hysteria moments in the video, and it's about not it's an obsessive kind of love that's happening in the whole song. And I know we get obsessed sometimes. We get obsessed about K-pop, don't we? But this song is, I don't know, I guess basically I just love the sound of it. And I hope that you wouldn't just listen to the song, but you'll listen to the whole album, mini album of Woods, Only Lovers Left. He has really great songs in that album. So Benj, you've got anything to say?
No, personally speaking, I got introduced to Woods like last week in our episodes, and since I do watch comeback stages, I have been hearing Woods' comeback a lot. And for Waiting in particular, congrats on your first win as a
Yes.
Moods on Show Champion. It was against like really tough competition, so I think that says something that you got your first win off of Waiting. ironically out, like you got it from waiting, and you finally waited long enough to get it.
That's
Yes,
so cute.
7 years in the music industry, and he wins his first. So I'm
Oh my
happy
God.
about it. And please listen to his album. Yay! That's me plugging. So, okay, since I am the one who also curated this week's elephant playlist, I entitled it Chocolate, not Elephant. Uh, because just how like oops, wait, sorry. Just like how we don't know what chocolate we're gonna get. I guess that's how it is too when it comes to sadness. Well, sadness. No, but really, the playlist is made up of eight sad songs and 12 comfort songs that the hosts chose, and I divided it into the different kinds of sadness that I saw in the lyrics of the songs. So we have about how the world is and how it makes us sad. We got Melted for that, and the comfort songs for it would be People and Breathe. So and then we get the kind of sadness that comes when you're lonely, feeling lonely. We have Forever Rain by RM and Lonely by Jonghyun and Taeyeon. And to ease up those kinds of emotions, I hope you listen to Microphone and Feel Special. Okay, I'm just gonna quickly run through that. And then we got the kind of sadness that we get from grief of somebody important to us passing away. We got three songs for this. We got Ila by VI, Stay With Me, and One of These Nights by Red Velvet. And to as a way to comfort you during these grieving moments, I chose the songs from the list, Panorama, You Better Know, and You Better Know by Red Velvet. And then we have the sadness that comes from feeling nothing. And the song that is very fit for that is Zombie. Wait, let me search the lyrics for that. No, that's not that. This one.
I like how you've arranged the playlist, Bon. I like how
I put a
you've
lot of thought
chosen,
into it.
yeah, I like how you've chosen different forms of sadness that we have, and then
Yes.
instead of just the straight sadness songs, we've also put
Yes.
specific comfort songs for each feeling.
Yes, because I feel like we go through different kinds of sadness. Like each of us goes through different kind of sadness, and we need different kinds of songs for those days, for the specific sadness that we are feeling. So for the feeling hopeless, I think it's apt, breathing, but I've been dying inside. Nothing new, nothing feels right. Deja vu, so I close my eyes, let the demons sing me a lullaby. And I guess a lot of us have been feeling like that during this pandemic, specifically like just what is the meaning of life, right? And I hope you listen to this songs, Answer, Love Myself by BTS, Warning by Kim Sejong, I by Taeyeon, To My Youth by Balfour, and Raise Your Voice by Kim Jongkook, Haha, and Gummy. Because in these songs, I feel like you'd feel that it's okay. It's okay to feel like you're worthless at sometimes. Um, it's not gonna be that kind of way forever. So I hope these songs would cheer you up during these moments of feeling worthless, would give you hope that it's not the end. It's not that it's your life isn't gonna be that way forever. And actually, I started with two songs. I mean, with one song and ended with another. The first song is Eternal Sunshine by Epic High, and the ending song is Maybe Tomorrow by Jonghyun. I love the last words of both of these songs. I was actually surprised because the last words of these songs, I am here. And I'd like to remind you guys that your hosts are here to listen to you if you need help, if you just want to rant out. And I'm sure that you have people around you who will be there for you, no matter what happens to you. So that's why I started and ended with this, because I wanted to remind our listeners, the listeners of this playlist, that you have people around you that you can lean on when you're feeling sad, no matter what kind of sadness it is. So, and I do hope that you just won't listen to the Spotify, but that you'd go to the YouTube playlist and read the lyrics, because the lyrics of the songs are really beautiful, very beautiful. And I hope that you'll find encouragement the same way I did actually while reading this, the lyrics of the songs, not only the comfort songs, but also the sad songs, because sad songs, let's admit it, they feel like a companion in your sadness, right? It makes you feel less alone,
Yes.
really.
When we were picking comfort songs, I noticed that not just me, for some of us, some of the comfort songs we picked are actually sad. And I realized it's not that we find comfort in sadness exactly, it's that we're already sad and realizing or finding out that there are others who feel the same way. That in itself is comforting, right? So it's like sometimes when we're feeling down, we want to talk to someone, not because we want advice, not because we want them to solve our problems. It's as simple as the acknowledgement that, hey, I see you, I see what you're going through, I'm going through it too. And even that in itself is very comforting and uplifting to realize that we're not alone in these feelings.
It's why I actually put Eternal Sunshine in the first two, because the chorus, like, you feel lonely, sick
Yeah.
with anxiety, same here, same here.
Actually, yeah. Actually, it's their whole album is great, but they said that Epic
Yes.
High, yeah, when they made it, it's for people who, if you're feeling sleepless, if you have insomnia. And sorry, not to make this about me, but when that album came out, I was not into K-pop yet, because that was some years ago. But I would listen to their album almost every night because I was really suffering from insomnia at that time, and that it actually helped me, even if I didn't understand the lyrics yet.
Yeah.
I'm just glad, like, one, to that point, I feel like we don't talk about lyrics enough. And obviously, none of us are native speakers, but for us to have found a way to have, these songs connect to us, even if we don't yet understand the lyrical context and only get it later on, really does, speak to the universality of what we're talking about here. Like, yes, sure, there's an actual language barrier. None of us know how to speak Hangul, at least to my knowledge, right? But the fact that we can still relate to these works means that they're more than just what we perceive them to be as, like, oh, they're just here to make us, think, we're just listening to them. No, it actually can speak to us to that level. And the fact that there's a different level of sadness, right? Like, there's like the stigma, like, when you are sad, that it's just a general feeling of sadness, but in reality it could be emptiness, it could be grief, it could be all of these kinds of things. And the fact that we acknowledge this, I think, is the first step to removing that whole stigma of, like, oh, you're just sad, get over it. Like, be happy. It's like telling somebody, hey, you can't walk because you broke your leg. Nah, man, just stand up, right? No, there is recognition that you do have to recognize the causes, you do have to recognize where it's coming from, and that it's not an easy process to get out of. But yeah, so Vaughn, thank you so much for helping curate the playlist, and I think the fact that we talked about that very, timely playlist means we now have to talk about the very essence of why we're here. So I give it to Janana to give us the news, and this will really tie into our main discussion of the day.
Okay, so the news we have this week is something, uh I think it's something we don't really want to happen, because okay, so the news I have is about this American singer Oliver Tree, who used an image of Chinese Jonghyun during the image of his funeral, for I think it's for a tour. Let me check real quick. Yeah. This happened back in 2019. So Oliver Tree had a tour entitled, wait, let me see the title. It was entitled Goodbye Farewell Tour. Then people saw that Oliver Tree used, the image with the flowers, and then they changed the picture from Jonghyun to him, if I'm not mistaken. So this happened in 2019, but then recently people saw it, K-pop fans saw it. So they trended apology underscore Oliver Tree in, I think, in Twitter, for him to, to know that this is wrong, and he shouldn't use a photoshopped image of a deceased K-pop idol for clout, for that tour, whatever. So what happened? The news is that Oliver Tree apologizes. He posted in his Instagram stories that he was sorry, blah 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 blah, whatever. What the thing about this apology though is that a lot of fans weren't happy with it. It's because the apology was only posted in Instagram stories, which is, it's not permanent. It's just 24 hours. So the fans were thinking it's not enough, and um Jonghyun deserved more than what was given to him by this artist who used his funeral. There you go. That's the sad news we have.
Actually, it's just disrespectful to use anyone's funeral photo,
Exactly.
be it a K-pop star or a normal person. You don't do that, man.
The thing though,
Really?
I was looking into this news, and then I found in Reddit people were talking about it, and some people were saying that Oliver Tree didn't have to apologize because it was his team who made it, not him. Things like that, and like he already said sorry. Isn't that enough? So it was it's really messed up how people are like, it's done, whatever, move on. But this is someone's life, someone's funeral image that they photoshop. So, and I don't know, it's just hard to discuss because a lot of K-pop fans are hurting because of what happened. It happened in 2019, and it's 2021. The apology just happened recently. It's just this week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it
So
begs the
yeah.
question, why did he apologize? And it makes you think that maybe the reason he apologized is the backlash that he received. It's been so long that because the backlash was just recent, is that why he apologized as opposed to apologizing because he's genuinely sorry for what he's done. He really wants to repent. It's hard to talk about, hard to unpack.
I can't explain it. It's just it angers me so much that someone used, someone else's funeral photos.
Well, we're already talking
Yeah.
about it. You might as well jump to the main reason why we're here today.
Okay. So, um, our main topic is about Chinese Jonghyun. It's very appropriate, we think, given that October is celebrating awareness for depression and mental health. Um, for those of you who did not know, Kim Jong Hyun was a member of the SM boy group SHINEE. He was the main vocal, if I'm not mistaken. Um, SHINEE debuted in 2008, and they were very successful from the start. Their debut single "Replay" was very famous, and they had a lot of Nuna fans. Um, they had really, really great earworm songs like Lucifer, Ring Ding Dong, songs that they had to ban during exam period because they were so catchy. That's the extent of how successful this group was. I mean, is still now because Shiny's performing as four members. So during I guess it's kind of the height of their career. Um, they're still riding high. Um, Jonghyun, one of the members, he had a solo career. He was really successful too, as he was an author, he was a radio DJ, he wrote songs. So he was really successful, and he was loved by the public. I think this is one of the most interesting parts of this story. He didn't really have, not that I know of anyway, he didn't really have a scandal. He wasn't maligned by a lot of the netizens because he didn't make a mistake. So so this came as a shock because of that. I mean, in his radio show, he does talk about, because he's very open. He does talk about, being depressed, having this sadness, this emptiness and stuff. He talks to his fans about them. He writes about them, struggles in mental health and stuff. But then on December 18, 2017, news broke out that Jonghyun was found in a hotel, I think. And then this happened because his sister contacted police to look for him because he sent her a message. If I'm not mistaken, the message was how this was his final goodbye. It's important to note that he was slated to have a comeback, like only a few, soon. I don't remember when, but he was supposed to have a comeback. He just recently finished a tour. So he was really busy at the time. He wasn't, his career was not stagnant or whatever. So during the time, I'm not going to discuss how he did it. It's just that he was found, already unconscious in that, I think it was a hotel, and he was rushed to the hospital. But during that time, it was open. It was announced in the news what had happened, how he tried to do this and that, and how he was in the hospital and he was struggling, to live. So as a K-pop fan during the time, I experienced the roller coaster of having, the news that he was in the hospital, and then people were saying, no, they're reviving him. He can survive. He will survive. And then finding out, no, he's dead. And then another, there were rumors, a lot of rumors. We weren't sure what was really happening. And it was heartbreaking how a lot of things were publicized, how he wasn't given, privacy even during this time. I remember, how he did it was publicized. Um, his his suicide note was publicized. But the thing about his suicide note is that um he sent this. I don't know if it was a message or something. He sent this suicide note to a friend. This friend was also an artist. Um, she she after getting the permission of Jonghyun's family, she publicized the suicide note. This was because Jonghyun's request to her was to post this so that people would know. Like, he wants, even during this time, he wanted to raise awareness for mental health. So I'm not gonna read the letter because it's really hard. It's difficult to process and even discuss. But the letter talks about, how he's feeling. So the feeling of depression, things like that. He talked about blaming himself for things, and how he felt like he wasn't cut out for celebrity life, and how he's struggling. A lot of his ideas were there, and I think one of the most poignant parts of the letter is at the end, how he just wanted to be acknowledged, and he wanted to hear how he did well. So there's that. um I guess uh, I guess it's really hard for me to talk about because Jonghyun was, people really looked up to him, and we weren't sure how to move forward after that. And I know people who still weren't able to process this. Like, they don't talk about him flat because they can't process it. But there are some who want to talk about it because they want to raise, awareness. And I remember even the members, um there was he, if I'm not mistaken, he was in a show, and he was talking to Taeyeon, if I'm not mistaken, about how they want to be able to, discuss him, celebrate his life, talk about it, and not it being sad all the time. And not, his legacy isn't supposed to be about how he died, but rather how he spread, happiness, kindness, all those things. Because there's more to Jonghyun than his death. I think that's what I'm getting at.
If I may like say something about the story, I feel like the wording already implies like, I know like there's probably a lot of reasons, and reading the note, it really did lead towards like the pressures of fame and all of those things. And I know it's not as simple as that. The fact that like you mentioned something about, oh, he didn't have any scandals, or like he was squeaky clean, he had this perception, to be honest with you, is part of the damaging reality that can cause this, right? Like the fact that, oh, why is he doing this? It's not like people hated him for doing something like that. In an industry where people can turn on you for very simple things, and sometimes it's like, well deserved, but like the fact that our standards were like, oh, he was well loved because he didn't have any scandals, like there's always like this perceived aura of perfection that they have to live up to, that always everything has to be perfect. You always have to look your best part. You always have to be perceived as a perfect person. So even when this person is openly struggling and has been open about it through their own experiences with like the radio shows and all of their platforms, to this day, instead of like raising awareness as to the circumstances, all we can feel or all we can really talk about is the fact that it happened. But as you mentioned, people don't talk about the whys or like the real things that that Jonghyun brought, right? Like the happiness that he brought. It was really just, oh, this person did this, and I feel like that's still part of this pervasive thing that they don't talk about. This thing that really did need to be talked about.
Understand the want of his fans to celebrate his life, to celebrate the things that he did, and to not focus on how he ended. But the thing is that I think reading off his note, and the thing that they are perceived to be perfect. One line here says that I was in pain because of me. It's all my fault that I carry so many imperfections. Teacher, is this what you wanted to hear? No, I didn't do anything wrong. I used to think that it's so easy for doctors to blame your personality for the suffering in their calm voice. And I think I understand partly this, that it's I think he was partly blaming himself for what he was feeling. But I think he also understood that it wasn't just his fault, that there was a kind of environment that was throwing oil into this fire that he was feeling, this fire of sadness that he was already feeling. And there was people throwing oil into that fire, making it burn brighter until it consumed him. And I think we have to talk about it, it's it's the elephant in the room, right? And it's as difficult as it is to talk about it. If it was his want to talk about it, to raise awareness for mental health, then I think it's part of our responsibility, I guess, as K-pop fans, and not only as K-pop fans, but as people, to actually honor that wish of his to raise awareness on mental health.
I feel like not talking about it dehumanizes the idol. In a way, it's like you're just an idol. You are just here to entertain us, to produce songs, to dance for us, to just be an image of an imaginary parasocial relationship that we can't have. So it's a disservice to the people behind this, because the people who we, proclaim as our idols, they are people in general. So if we don't talk about these circumstances, then we're just admitting that they aren't commodities at this point. That what they believed in, what they wanted, was secondary to the money that had to be made from this industry. And I know that we can just opt not to be part of the industry, or we can opt to acknowledge that it does have its flaws, it does have its problems, like any industry. And acknowledgement is the first step towards change at the end of the day.
You know what's interesting to me is we've been talking about how they're perceived as perfect. There's this pressure on them. I feel like part of the pressure they feel might also come from, and I imagine, this is not, like a confirmed thing. It's just what I feel that they might feel. Because in our own way, do you guys ever feel guilt for your sadness or for your mental health? Because the way I see it, I sometimes feel guilt over my mental health struggles, because I feel like I'm already so privileged. What right do I have to be struggling when there are others who have so much less than me? So I feel like that could be a contributing factor, right? To the guilt, maybe, and the shame and the stigma of why these supposedly perfect people with perfect lives, it makes it harder to talk about. And that's why it's so surprising for fans, for the world to find out, hey, they were going through something we had no idea. But rather than you know be indicative of like something wrong with the person going through it, I think it just further proves how systemic it is. The lack of mental health awareness and services, and it really makes you reflect. How as people, maybe there are few things that really connect all of us across class, across gender, across race, all of that stuff. But one of those things really is mental health. Like, for example, in the pandemic, of course, there's differences in how we're dealing with it, based on people's privileges, their class, what they have, if they're comfortable. And of course, that's true, and it's not something that should be ignored. It has to be acknowledged. But at the same time, it also makes you think, hey, in a way, we all are going through this, right? Maybe we're not all in the same boat. Everyone has different um comfort levels or privileges. But at the same time, it also makes you think, hey, we were all affected by this too. Maybe not in the same way, but it's still something that needs acknowledging or needs to be talked about. You guys, it's so hard to talk about this now. I didn't realize it would be this hard. Even now,
It is.
I
yeah.
think it's because we come from you are right, like we come from a certain level of privilege also. And especially if we talk in the context of idols, I mean, like
Mhm.
on the onset it looks like you have everything should be fine, right? Like if you really think about it this way, you're rich, you're famous, you could have
Mhm.
literally everything. But that doesn't diminish the fact that you could still be experiencing certain problems that what you have may not be able to solve. And
Yeah.
this is a very common thing when it comes to not even just like this industry, to fame in general. Why is this person complaining? Why is this person sad? I mean, you have everything. I feel like what we fail to recognize is just because your house may not be as on fire as mine doesn't mean it's not on fire.
Yeah.
True. Very
And
true.
there's this line from his note that I think puts it well about, okay, it surprises me how I am feeling this much pain. Those people who have suffered far worse than I seem to go on living perfectly fine. Those weaker than I am live on as well. I guess not. Among the living, there is no one who is suffering worse and no one who is weaker, which I think is true. As I started with the playlist, sadness in any form is sadness. Sadness, no matter who is feeling it, is sadness. Whether it be a celebrity, or it be a student, sadness is sadness. And we need to acknowledge that. And I hope that there would be less question of why are you feeling that way? You have everything. You have a silver spoon in your mouth or something like that, right? I think a little kindness from everybody would make it so much better for the person who is feeling that kind of sadness. Just an acknowledgement that they are sad without having to ask them why they do, why they feel sad because of the things they have. That belittles what they are feeling, and that's not what that person needs. They need to be acknowledged. That's you know
It's a much harder thing to lift each other up than it is to pull each other down. That's the hard part of that's the reality of the situation. It's much easier to say this person has it all, I don't care about your problems, versus let's all fix this together. And the reality is probably we're never gonna solve that. But the best we can do is try.
yeah. So I guess, listener, if you're gonna take away a point, anything from this, I wish that you would be more kind to others. Not only to others, but to yourself too. You know, not only don't I know it's hard not to feel guilty about what you're feeling, but I hope that how kind you are to others would be the same kind of kindness that you would give to yourself, because you deserve that kind of kindness.
Also, because you can only really give as much to other people as you're willing to give yourself. So if you're not even
Yes.
kind to yourself, how can you expect to be kind to other people? And I feel like that's the perfect segue to the other details that we need to talk about, which is the dangers that the industry has on us. Like, I remember in our notes in this, Joanna mentioned that aside from the fact that this happened, the aftermath wasn't exactly the best either. I know it's difficult to talk about, but I feel like we really have to.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing with this is how it was handled. Again, I talked about a while ago how, the details on what happened was all over the news. How, as things were happening, they were all over the news. It was the same even afterwards. I remember how even during the funeral, um, which celebrities were there were publicized, or how during the wake, each time a celebrity was going in, and there were videos, there were pictures, there were reports on, oh, BTS went to visit Jonghyun, or like, oh, his bandmates were there.
You're making it sound
Even
like this was a red carpet event. Like there was paparazzi going around
yeah,
and like taking pictures. Oh, look who we saw, and that's kind
exactly,
of
exactly. That's
terrible.
the thing.
Yeah.
It was like who's who. Everyone who's who was supposed to go, like something like that. Even who were going to carry his casket. Oh, it's the other members of SHINEE and Super Junior members. Who was going to carry the picture, because it's really symbolic of who was going to be in the procession, who was going to carry the picture, because it's supposed to be a family member who's a guy, but then he didn't have any guy family members left. So that was a question floating around, and then, oh, it's one of his members, and how um there were videos and pictures, lots and lots of them, of how members of, let's say, members from the same company were how were they were dealing with it. We see videos and pictures of them, while they were crying. Some were even criticized for how they responded. I remember during this time, I think the day of the tragedy, TVXQ were in Japan, and they had to perform. They had to, they had a live TV event, something that they had to be in. They weren't given, they weren't told, oh, you can skip this. No, they had to perform. So they went live on TV. It was acknowledged, it was like, oh, someone from the same company as you died today, or yesterday, or something. and they were like, they would have to say yes, but then smile and like perform for people. I don't remember if they even smiled while performing, but they had to perform before they could even go and handle their own grief. Yeah so what happened was the wake was very public. People were like, oh, this, and even the last, you know the funeral procession, him getting out of the building, his casket, we see the members crying. If I don't want anyone to watch the video, but you would see how there were lights everywhere while they were going about, the procession, while people were crying. They weren't given privacy. Everything was like, the thing about this, though, is I understand why, the newspapers, the media outlets, why they wanted to cover this, because this is one of the most, prominent suicides in Korea at the time. Because, like, um it was a long time ago, before, significant celebrities, let's call them, famous people, committed such an act. If I remember correctly, it was the last ones. There was a string of this as well, like years before this, before what happened to Jonghyun happened, like I think in 2010. And then, a former president. But then this is another celebrity. It's like he's part of the Hallyu wave, because like he has fans all over the world. So I understand, like, how the media is like, we want to report on this because this is a big news. But then, how the other details were open. It wasn't helping. That's what I'm getting at.
I think it makes you realize how we as a society still have yet to really develop a way that we can talk about mental health without without adding to people's struggles or without triggering others, because like you said, on the one hand, it's something that needs to be covered, needs to be discussed, but then it's difficult to know where to draw the line. For example, for the media, I imagine it would have been difficult for them to know, okay, what is okay, what is not okay to talk about, what might not be good for the public to know, and where's the line between good journalism and just sensationalizing this, right? It's very difficult.
I think the problem lies within like the messaging though, because if the messaging was to acknowledge the reasons, I feel like the way that it was covered was really just sensationalization and basically just, oh, this thing happened, but people still have to perform. And like the fact that the entire funeral was made into a performative act was kind of like, I think that just kind of tells us what our understanding as a whole society is of these issues, right? Like, we didn't talk about why it probably happened. We probably talked about the fact that, oh, other people visited or other people still had to perform, and who else was in this? Who was here, right?
It's like, instead of unpacking why did this happen, what can we do to address it so it doesn't happen again, instead of talking about all that, it became about the reactions of people to what happened, specifically other famous people, when for a lot of them, on a very personal level, it was probably a very personal loss to them, and yet here they are having to worry about how they look, right?
As someone who did not know anything about Jonghyun except for, the fact that he unalived himself. I don't want to censor myself later when I edit this episode. One thing I knew about this entire thing was that for some reason, this very tragic act is being used as fodder for people to continue to bring others down. That's the weird thing for me. The only reason I know about this is because Jonghyun is an SM artist, and obviously I follow SM because I follow Red Velvet, right? And what I knew from this funeral was that Yeri, the maknae of Red Velvet, was visibly crying because she trained with Jonghyun. They are part of SM. They've known each other. She's been open about the fact that, they have been training. Yet people have taken this as her seeking clout. And I feel like it's such a weird thing to trivialize a human emotion as still part of the industry, as still part of a way for people to bring each other down. And I don't know if that tells more about the fans or the industry that created them, but I feel like it's weird for a very serious event to be taken as, part of the toxicity that we just kind of have to accept being here. And I think that's overall part of the problem. We don't even remember why this happened. I didn't even know why this happened, but I know that this particular incident was sensationalized. And in my mind, all I could think of was, then what did this person die for in particular then? If we are not to discuss it. If all we're going to do is publicize it by not noting the reasons, but just telling us who was there, how did they react, and did they react with quote unquote the best intentions? Were I don't know, this entire thing just kind of makes me feel uneasy, but I guess that's why we have to talk about it.
Can I just say that there was actually improvement later on? Because, Jonghyun wasn't the only one who,
I think it was
unnamed
also
themselves, I guess.
solely from
Yeah,
FX.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah. Wait. Okay. So the thing though is after 2 years, yeah, because her death anniversary was just this week. Sully also, but before even Sully did, um, Gohara from Kara attempted like months before, and then she was even criticized for it because she didn't die. She attempted, but she didn't die. So you have to like think about that, because
Wait, wait. So
okay.
basically, what you're saying is that if things had gone wrong, people would probably like martyr,
Yeah.
put her as a martyr. But like
Mhm.
since it failed, people are like, oh, you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
The
That's a
thing though
problem.
is the thing though is 6 weeks after Sully, because they were friends. 6 weeks after Sully, Hara died, and then it was a great tragedy. Um, okay, so we're not gonna discuss more of them now because they have a different case. But these two women died really near each other. They were criticized a lot. They were part of the industry. But one thing that I do commend the media about their coverage of these two women's deaths is that it wasn't as public as Jonghyun's. It wasn't a who's who of who's in the funeral, who's in. It wasn't like that. It was, I think, it showed how some people in the industry grew, and how they cover this issue. Because um yes, there was a memorial, a tribute for these two women who were separate. It was separate from their bodies, and then but it wasn't publicized. Where her or where their funerals were. It wasn't you it wasn't seen who was crying, who was but people were still criticized, even though it wasn't as public. I remember reading how people were criticizing Crystal from FX as well, how they weren't seeing her grief, I guess. I don't know. But it wasn't as much of a circus as what happened to Jonghyun. But there are still things that are wrong with how these were covered, I guess. The coverage was just so weird, especially with Jonghyun.
I think your wording a while ago, prominent tragedy, um, makes it like they're not learning. I mean, I understand that it was a big public event because of how popular he was in, but let's acknowledge that Korea has one of the highest rates in the world, and I guess that says something about the kind of society that they are living in, the the kind of expectations, not only on these idols, but also on normal people. Um, uh, and a bit of a differentiation between what happened with Jonghyun and Sully and Hara was how the issues for Sully and Hara were more visible to the public eye than Jonghyun's pain before he did what he did. Um, they were battling different things. The three of them were battling different things, and I guess maybe it's how surprised the people were during Jonghyun's death. They didn't know how to react really to it because there were no telltale signs, right? You could say that. You
Not
said
that
that
we know.
none that we know, exactly, none that we know. While on Sully and Hara, they had attempts, and their issues were very public too, on what they were battling supposedly. And I think the media has the responsibility to talk about difficult things, to raise awareness about these kinds of things, not only as a red carpet event, but to actually, to be a platform on raising awareness that this is happening. Not only to popular people, not only to celebrities, but to normal people too. And I guess that's what I find to be lacking in right now. We have this awareness months, but do we only spread awareness during this month, right? I wish, um, yeah, I guess we're doing this episode to raise awareness of the elephant in the room.
I think like you've mentioned a systemic problem with the word awareness because I'm pretty sure we are all aware. Well, not well we ourselves, but most people are probably aware, but we don't know what does it entail. Like, okay, we know that depression exists, but even I was super uneducated a few years ago, and I was just like, oh come on, just cheer up, right? Like just buy something and things like that. But the fact that we are aware of it, but we don't know what it
What to,
means, what to do about it, means we are not aware. We just know
I
about it.
We know about it, and I think the media could actually be used in a great way in raising the kind of awareness that we wish would exist about this, like how you know how to fight dengue, right? I mean, you have the danger signs of dengue, what to do to avoid it, and all those kinds of things. And I know that it's difficult to do that for mental health because it's not something that you can actually see. It's not like a stroke, that there's a bleeding in the brain, and it's not as easy to remedy. But I think it starts with the acknowledgement that it does exist and that there is something you can do about it, you know? Um, I guess it would be nice if the media was used in that kind of way, really.
I think the one thing beautiful about the industry that we're seeing is that even if the media doesn't cover it, we know for a fact that the artists themselves are open about it. They talk about it. The lyrics in their songs can actually be a forum for them to discuss it. And as they become more popular, as they have a bigger platform, they can then continue to use their platform to talk about it more. And we are seeing this, right? Like, I would say, like, a few years ago, we had no idea of why celebrities did these kinds of things. And even just outside the realm of K-pop, you'd see things like, how did Robin Williams do this? He was so, like, he made everybody so happy, but we had no idea that
Inside.
these things happen, right? And even outside, like in music as well, I remember in 2019 there was Chris Cornell, there was Chester Bennington. Like, these are not these are not like unknowns. These are people who have the names, have the wealth and things, and that can still happen. But I feel like now, since we are seeing more artists use their platform to really talk about these issues, we're not saying it solves it and oh poof magically this has all disappeared, but these are small steps towards the right direction. And I feel like if the media is not gonna do it, we can count on our artists to have and use their voice.
Yes. I think,
Okay.
Meg, about about artists who raise awareness on these kinds of
Oh yeah.
things.
Okay. Um Sorry if I was quiet earlier.
It's fine.
It's right. I don't know how to talk about this still. But yes, speaking of artists who are open about their struggles, one in particular that I am very moved by and very proud of is Suga from BTS. He is very vocal about his struggles with depression and anxiety. It comes up a lot in not just their music as a group, but even more so in his solo work, his music as August B. And when I had just become an army, I was very surprised to find out that hey, one of them has depression and anxiety. So it was surprising to me precisely for the reasons you were talking about. You don't expect it, and certainly you don't expect them to be vocal about it because we live in a world where um you look at social media, right? And then the people who seem to thrive on social media are the ones whose lives seem perfect. I'm thinking about Instagram and the people who I shouldn't be following because seeing them look so happy makes me feel like I'm doing something wrong, right? But then, of course, that's all curated. So to hear from the artists themselves that these are struggles that they go through, it's it's actually comforting instead of being something where you feel like uh why do you feel that way, you're successful versus me. I find that more often the feeling is, oh, okay, if someone that has everything that seems to have everything can also go through these things, then it's not something that I should be ashamed of, that I should feel guilty about. um Certainly, as collectively, we're not yet at that point. We've come a long way compared to, for example, the generations of our parents. You know how sometimes it's a joke when we refer to older generations and they say wala namang mental health nung panahon namin. But then you realize that that's just an indicator of how
It
little
explains a lot.
awareness there was, right? It
Yeah,
makes you realize, wow, that means nung panahon nyo, I mean, as little support as there may be now, or we feel like nagkukulang pa rin. Compared to before, look how far we've come, right? So even just the fact that we're able to talk about it, even just the fact that we're able to put labels on it, right? Depression, anxiety, OCD, all of the disorders that we're still learning about. Just the fact that there are names for them, right? It's such a big thing. Even just being able to realize, okay, hey, this isn't something I made up in my head. I'm really going through something. It's such a big deal.
It's an acknowledgement that yes, we've gone a long way, but there's still a lot more
still
to
have
go
a
through.
Still a lot,
long way
yes.
to
There's
go.
still
The fight
a
isn't
ways to
over.
go.
We're at 1%, but it's better than zero.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Maybe we're
actually,
at like 5 or 10
yeah,
compared to
like
I was
way back.
upset before.
But you're right. Still
true.
a long way to go.
All right. So we have a few final words on the topic. So I shall pass it on to who wants to go first. Who's ready?
I think just the last thing that I would like to say is um while it's of course we have to start from what we have now. So acknowledgement, being able to talk about it with people we know. But like Ben was saying a while ago, there's still a long ways to go. There's still a big percentage we have to go. And a big part of that percentage is the fact that mental health services are still not accessible. Thinking about how much therapy costs, who on a regular basis has between 2,000 to 4,000 pesos per hour, right? You know how I am a big advocate of therapy. I think it would benefit everyone, not just people with diagnoses, but even anybody, right? It's so helpful. But thinking about the financial cost, I understand why not everyone is able to access it, right? So, in as much as we wish that these small things we do are enough, systemically, there's still so much that has to be done for us to really get to that point. And I know that's kind of a sad note for me to share or to
Yeah.
end on, but it's just something that's always on my mind. This is thought that it's not that we don't want to address our struggles, it's that not everyone can afford to, right?
I think on that note, the my professor told me that there is a lack of psychiatrists in this country, and I think that's one of the factors, that we need to address. That we need more psychiatrists, we need medicine that are cheaper, so that the rate of the therapy would actually go down. And I understand that there are free services. We will link them. We will link them to you, and we will create a post about it. And um, I am one of the blessed ones who could afford therapy. And well, I just want to relay it personally to listeners, just so you know that you're not alone. You know, um, I am struggling with depression myself, and it hasn't been easy. Really, this just taking the first step to asking for help was very difficult. It wasn't easy. It was a struggle. It was like a struggle of a decade, something like that. Like and as Meg discussed a while ago, how one would feel guilty, feeling that kind of way when you have everything. um I wish that you listeners who feel that way would understand that although uh what do you call mental diseases or disorders have a social factor to it, there is also a biology. There's also a biologic factor to it. So it's not your fault. It's not the fault of the people around you. It's it's a combination of everything in our environment, in our biology, in our genetics. It's it's something that you can get better. You can get better. That's I acknowledge that I'm still struggling even after a year in constant therapy, in constant medication, and we can say that it takes a long time, and some people really don't get as better. But you know what I like about the fact that I asked for help is that I am more able now to handle stressors and the sadness that comes with it. I learned how to deal with it a little bit better than how I was dealing with it before. And I hope that the listeners who can relate and who feel this way would reach out. You can reach out to us, you can reach out to professionals, you can reach out to your friends. It's don't hesitate. I know that you will be hesitating, but in that hesitation, tell yourself, I need help, until you believe that you do need help.
This is what I wanted to add too. Fortunately, I work in companies that offer these kinds of services, but I recognize that not everybody might have that, that available to them at the moment. But it was a struggle for me as well to need this. All the places I've worked at have had it, but I've only recently used it because 2021 has been a really rough year. And if anybody knows me personally, you guys will know why. I'm not going to disclose it on this podcast, but it's been a rough year. The thing I really just wanted to say is, if it's available to you, then you should use it. It's difficult at first,
Yes.
and it's really hard to talk about, but it helps. And the more that you're open to receiving these kinds of things, the more that you'd recognize that it's a struggle that's not gonna end just by talking about it, but you'll also recognize that it's not gonna get better if you don't do anything about it. So it really is the first step towards getting better. And we hope that it's more accessible. And if it's not, we will personally try to help. I know Yvonne is the one in charge of this, but just having that option can really make a huge difference in how you perceive this.
So,
And I
Jenna,
feel like the one thing that it helped me is also empathize. I know it's, oh no, I got disconnected.
oh, it's our internet provider.
So who got disconnected? Oh, we share the same internet
No,
provider.
it's you.
Oh
It's
man.
you.
Anyway, what I was trying to
Yeah.
say is, I feel like what I learned from all of this experience is basic empathy. And I feel like it's such a difficult thing to address, but having empathy, honestly, is not something that's inherent, to be honest. Like, you can feel for somebody, but I feel like unless you really put yourselves in that situation, unless you really do process and talk about it, I don't think you'll have an easier time understanding. So for me, it's having the empathy to recognize when it happens to you helps you understand it when it happens to other people, and it helps you become a kinder person. So hopefully, with whatever means are there, I hope you do take it if you do need it. But to be honest with you, I hope it's not just I hope it's not just a situation of I really do need it at this point. At some point, we all do need it. And I hope it doesn't get to a point where you're really just down before you consider, oh, I'll take this free option. And I recognize not everybody has the free option, but we will hopefully have these options. So if you do have the privilege, my take is just take it.
Okay, so I shall discuss as well because I have personal experience with this topic. Yeah, I think among like all of us, my experience is the closest with Jonghyun, I guess, because I have struggles. I'm not gonna be very detailed because like trigger warning, yo. Anyway, so I am diagnosed with depression and general anxiety disorder. I have been in therapy, and I've been taking medications. To be honest, like I have to take, I think, three medications to be functional, to be a functional person in society. I've cycled through a lot of medications. I'm hoping this the latest ones are the most helpful so far. I've been in therapy since I think 2018. Struggling years before that. I remember my friends and even my sister telling me even before 2018 that I should see professionals. I remember how I was very hesitant. I know the feeling of I don't think I need this because a lot of other people are struggling more than me, or like the financial constraints. I remember all those considerations, and like, but I know I'm sad. I'm not sure if people with depression and if they acknowledge it. So that was what I was hanging on to. It's like, but I'm acknowledging it. Isn't that like enough or something? I remember how a friend she booked my consultation. She went with me. How like most of my first um session was my friend talking for me because I can't even talk to the psychiatrist myself. I remember how the first I think 3 months of my therapy was me going inside the psychiatrist's office with a friend. How I had to have someone with me because I'm not able to properly talk about things. I remember how I was even there with Meg, like at some point, and how
I remember.
when I was with her there, we tried, to not have her, and it was a success because it was 30 minutes without her. That was
Yeah, I
that was my
remember.
threshold at the time. And how I was struggling because okay, so medyo personal, but like how I was struggling because these people, my friends, already graduated from UP and I was still there. I was feeling, alone and helpless and things like that. And how the same year things happen, like personally, and people who know us know what we're talking about, how things happened that year and how we struggled as, as friends, and how these losses that we had during that year was very personal to me because I was struggling so hard that year, and how I was thinking maybe it should have been me. I honestly had multiple attempts, not gonna lie. First one was like very close to a loss that we had, and how I'm okay. So full disclosure, I'm very brazen and like casual when I talk about my attempts. Like it's how I cope with it. I don't know how to, so maybe it's off for some people because I don't know how to deal with it. So I just, I just mention it casually. And like I'm sorry if it shocks you, or like, if any of my friends who I've talked to with my struggles, I'm sorry if um it's so casual when I mention like, oh, I did something yesterday, or like, oh, I'm sorry, I left our video call because I kind of did something. It's something I'm trying to like be at peace with, I guess. How um my struggles, it's not okay. So I've been in therapy since 2018, and I have to acknowledge that, you know getting better isn't just, uphill. It's a struggle talaga. It's
Not linear.
up and down. There are days that, even though, I'm taking my meds, even though um there really isn't anything wrong supposedly, but there are days that I can't get out of my bed. I can't deal with people. I can't interact with anyone at all. So I think we have to acknowledge that and have to be open, like, even when you're already in therapy, like, you have to, at the very least, be open to the possibility that, okay, this is not my day. Maybe maybe tomorrow would be. I mean, hopefully. You know what, I'm not really sure because I don't know. Okay, so the thing with my struggles is that, um I have awareness, at the very least. I mean, after all these years in therapy, I hope that I have enough awareness of, of knowing, okay, so a bad day is coming. Okay, so brace yourself. I mean, one thing that I did learn from, years of taking pills and therapy and stuff is that sometimes your mind is your enemy, and that it tricks you. It tricks you into believing that nobody loves you, that, it's a void, that you're in a void, and you have to get out. And like, maybe this, this pain would be a better one than the current pain you're feeling. Um, I remember reading from one of my friends. I don't remember who. If you know who you are, just let me know so that I'm not plagiarizing you. But I remember reading from one of my friends how suicide isn't something, okay, just, bench blur it out. I'm sorry. But like how it's something that people don't understand, and here's an analogy for it. It's the feeling you have when you're inside a burning building and you want to get out. You're panicking, you have a lot of struggles during that time. And maybe you see something, a way out. Maybe that way out is, let's say, jumping off that building. You might get hurt. It might be worse. But you just want to end that, you know, that current pain, I guess. Or, if it's depression, it's not exactly sadness and pain all the time. It's emptiness, it's a lot of things. So we have to acknowledge that at the very least, and know that yes, it's valid. Yes, sometimes your mind is tricking you. Yes, sometimes you think you're in a burning building and you just, jump to get out. But sometimes if you stay in that building, maybe, you know there's a rescue coming, or you'd see the exit, fire exit. Maybe it's there. You're just not seeing it because you're being tricked into feeling, because you're overwhelmed. So you're being tricked into feeling, this is it. I have to do something. So I guess it's hard. But like, I don't know.
can I just say and hear this, okay? I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of all of you. I'm proud of you, Joe. I'm proud of you, Bon, and I'm proud of you, Benz. I know at least a little. I'm sure I don't know all. It's an iceberg probably, and I only know the tip of everything you guys have been through. So I'm so proud to see you here, to see you today, and I'm so proud I get to do this with you. You know.
Thanks, Meg. And
Okay,
yeah, I guess
everyone,
that's
break to
even
get
the
tissue.
pressure. I think that's
Everyone,
the thing
break
with
to
the
cry.
depression. You don't really battle with with cancer cells. You're battling with your own mind.
Yeah.
That's the difficulty with it.
In a way, that
Like
is kind of related because, like, a cancer cell is like a regular cell that just kind of got messed up. So you're attacking yourself in a way.
yes, and yeah, I guess I think the analogy is really great. You're in a burning buildings. Races. There will always be rescue teams. So I hope you wait
And I
or
feel
reach
like
out, call 911,
And I feel like one thing that
and
we
that.
can do as people is that if we're all in a burning building, maybe instead of continuing to feed the flames, we can try to put it out. I'm not saying we can, I'm just saying
Yeah,
it
we can help each
You
other.
can try.
probably doesn't help if we're also like,
We can
if I
try.
see a burning building, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take a torch, I'm gonna burn it even more. Uh, we have this mentality as people, we have to admit that, but some people just want to see the world burn, but I feel like we can really benefit as a society if we're just gonna try to put it out. Like, we might not succeed, but at least we didn't make things worse.
Yes, kindness. Kindness
And
to yourself,
Kind word.
kindness for others.
and
Yeah.
since we're on that note, I know that some of us sometimes feel lonely, and I feel like we need to discuss this. So, who wants to take the lead? This is the last part of this part of the episode. We will try to cheer us up because we do need it, and it is scheduled, but we do actually need it. But right now, we do need to talk about lonely.
Yeah. Okay, so when we were talking about sad songs, the first thing that came to my mind was Lonely by Jonghyun and Taeyeon. Lonely was written, composed, and even arranged, I think, by Jonghyun. Um, it's a, it's something I related so much with when it was released in like 2017. I wasn't even in therapy that time. So this was one of the things that, got me through. And like this was one of the things that, made me become a fan of Jonghyun at the time because I wasn't much of a fan. I was a casual listener. And like the song discusses being lonely, not just with being alone, but even when you're with other people. I mean, it's not necessarily, romantic na you have a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a wife, a husband, whatever. It's how even in a room full of people you know and love, sometimes you could feel alone and lonely. And how you have difficulty letting them know, discussing it, and how you'd feel a burden to them because you know that everyone knows that everyone else has struggles. And sometimes, the guilt of feeling, why am I feeling like this? And, not wanting to be a burden to others. That's how the song is about, and how what the song revolves around. I briefly, very briefly, want to discuss the music video and how, it's very poignant how even with Taeyeon, Jonghyun was alone in the video, how he was writing on his arm how many years he's been feeling alone and lonely, how he's going about his day. It's like running water inside of you. How he's eating and he feels it, so he stops. Even how he was in a bathtub. I think this is one of the most poignant images for me in the video. How he has a lot of sticks in his arms and he's in the bathtub and he can't control it and he's alone. So I think this is a really it's not comforting per se, but it's a song that understands you when you're lonely. So yeah, it's a really, really great song. It's a really important song to know, I guess, if you're struggling and you can't word it. You can't say how you're feeling, I guess.
It was a beautiful song, and I could relate to it because that's how it felt for a long time. You'd be surrounded by people, and you'd feel sad, and it's like, but I'm with my people. Why would I feel sad? And yeah,
Okay.
it was a beautiful song, and I could relate to it. That's what I wanted to say.
Oh yeah, being alone and in a room full of people you know and love. Sometimes the thing is, remember that your mind is tricking you, right? Sometimes even in a room full of people that you love, you don't feel the love that they're giving you. You can't, you're not, you can't acknowledge it because you're not feeling it. And I understand that, and I hope that um you see in this dark time, or when you're feeling things, you see that people are trying to reach out to you, and you know reach out to them as well. Guess, yeah, yun yung nakalimutan ko, I think.
That's why I'd love you if you listen to the playlist, because lonely is, I think, followed by microphone. Reminds you that there are people you can talk to. Yeah. Go bench.
I'm at a loss for words, guys. This has been a really difficult I had no I personally didn't feel like this was gonna be a difficult episode because I thought I'd just be moderating it. And I had no idea that I'd feel all of this because at the crux of it, I myself am unaware of these issues. Therefore, it's a lot of internal realizations that you might not know when it hits you, but apparently it will. And it's a lot for me to take in. That's why I'm kind of quiet right now, because we talked a lot about really heavy things, and to be honest, even as a moderator, I don't know how to proceed with the next part of the discussion, because it's a bit of a mood whiplash. I guess all I could say about this is, I'm not saying I don't relate to the context of the song, or relate to the lyrics, because I watched the lyric video, not the music video. What I will say is, I'm just glad that there's an outlet for us to see it, and relate to it, and feel it. And even if I personally had a difficult time with this episode and discussing these kinds of things, I'm just happy we can process.